Hi, I'm Bill Osmulski, Content Director for the MacIver Institute. Welcome to the April 11th edition of the MacIver Report. I am joined by my colleague, as always,
Mike Lucas, policy analyst, chief economist, regular.
Glad to have you with us, as always. I couldn't do this without you because it's just you and me. So, let's see, we skipped last week, so we got a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. This is a story we've been following since day one. Right of first refusal. Mike, lots happened on this over the past couple weeks. So why don't you walk us through what these headlines are all about and what's going on right now?
Oh yeah. Okay. So basically, ROFR is a vampire. You kill it and it comes back, and you kill it and it comes back, and you kill it again and it comes back, and maybe you kill it again and it comes back. This session, a ROFR bill was introduced, died in committee, wasn't going anywhere. It has now, as of like 2 days ago, 3 days ago, whatever it is, been repackaged as part of a new bill called WERA, Wisconsin Energy Reform Act. And, well, here's the meat of it, which is that from the ROFR bill, they copy and pasted the monopoly provision from that bill and stuck it in this bill. There it is right there. It's word for word. It's exactly the same. Right of first refusal grants monopoly to the transmission company here in the state, ATC. They get first dibs on any transmission projects that would normally be subject to competitive bidding in Wisconsin. So this would get rid of that.
So you were telling me how when they repackaged it as WEFA.
Yeah, WERA. Yeah.
That obviously they kept in this worst part of it,
yes,
which was the whole point of ROFR was, to eliminate out-of-state competitors from coming into Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But they try to
they try to sweeten the pot.
Yeah, put a bunch of distractions in there.
Yeah.
To confuse people.
Yeah, this shows up on like page 39. Okay, the first 38 pages of the bill are actually really, really good. It's like a 90% awesome bill, and then you get to page 39 and there's this, and then it sucks. So they're trying to sweeten the pot. Basically what they're doing is they're dangling a nuclear energy carrot, in front of our faces, saying, "Don't you want nuclear power?
Because it would authorize new nuclear power plants in Wisconsin."
Yes, yeah, which is awesome. Nuclear is the best source of energy that there is in physical terms, in economic terms. If we can get the freaking feds out of regulating it and basically putting the kibosh on new nuclear energy plants by coming in 1 year into construction and saying, sorry, we changed the building codes, you have to start from scratch. If we didn't have that nonsense anymore, we could be just like France. We could generate 70% of our electricity from nuclear energy, never have to worry about blackouts or brownouts or anything like that. You'd have the most reliable and energy-dense and cost-effective source of energy that has to date been discovered. And they're saying, bite the carrot, and then we'll hit you with the stick, which is ROFR.
Nice.
Right? And then there's also, it's also, this act is sometimes being referred to as like a farm bill as well. And that's a second carrot that's being put out there, which is that if you pass this, we're going to include a bunch of, protections for Wisconsin's agricultural land, right? We're going to require utilities that build out new solar and wind and blah, 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 other renewable energy sources, that when they want these projects to be built, they also have to submit a plan for decommissioning these projects, because eventually they're going to go bust after 10 or 15 years. And so it lays the groundwork for saying that this is how you're going to clean up that land that you use to build a wind turbine on or solar panels on. If not for this part of it, awesome. It would pass. Any portion of this bill would pass with flying colors if they were introduced as separate bills.
Well, so it might pass, but one of the key factors in this whole ROFR WERA drive is that this is a bill that we can only assume Governor Evers is going to sign.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is I mean, it's circulating right now as we discuss this, so we don't know who's actually signed on as a sponsor and co-sponsor. But we know that the strategy on getting this passed involves getting lots of Democrats to vote for this as well. So this will be a bipartisan bill when it hits the governor's desk.
Yes, and already we know. I read an article on is it WisPolitics?
WisPolitics.
Yeah, WisPolitics.
Oh, wait.
Where some Republicans who were against ROFR when it was a standalone bill have now flipped.
Oh, maybe that must have been Wisconsin right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But on one of those sites, there's been a few Republicans who have flipped, which is really all you need to get this passed. Because if the Democrats are going to go for it, they want the ROFR.
Yeah. So let's see. So you tweeted this out on your personal Twitter earlier this week. These are, let's see, we got 11 state Republican lawmakers and representatives. Let's see, they're all representatives.
Yeah.
So these are 11 of the good guys that are still against this thing.
Yes. Yeah. So this originally came from Lindy Brill, who is a freshman. This is her first term in the legislature. But she put this out on her Twitter. I reposted it so you can see it on mine. But this is a letter that was sent to the U.S. Department of Justice, their antitrust division, asking them for guidance or feedback on WIRA, right? Like just saying, hey, if this thing passes, are you guys going to do anything? What's going to happen? A few weeks ago, Iowa sent almost an identical letter asking about the exact same thing, sent it to the U.S. DOJ Antitrust Division and said, hey, this legislature is trying to pass a ROFR bill of its own. What's going to happen with this? And the DOJ responded to that and said, don't bother because it's unconstitutional. It violates the Commerce Clause.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because the federal government gets to regulate interstate trade.
They get to regulate interstate trade, and this is a monopoly provision that prevents interstate trade. The whole purpose of the Commerce Clause. If you read my article, ROFR is back. I cite Alexander Hamilton. Okay,
a hero of the left.
Yes, the worst. American of the founding generation at all, and he says in Federalist paper number 88, I think it is. It's somewhere in the 80s, late 80s, not 17, 88. He says, when talking about the General Welfare Clause and the Commerce Clause, he says the whole point of the General Welfare Clause is that it's just saying that it's not authorizing anything. It can't be interpreted as being so broad that the federal government can do whatever it wants, because otherwise, why would we list out all the powers of the Congress in Article 1, Section 8? That wouldn't make any sense. And then with the Commerce Clause, he says that the entire purpose of it was to prevent states from imposing protectionist policies on one another, because that would sow disunion, and we're trying to establish a union, right? It was united front. That's the whole goal of this, federalist enterprise. So yeah, it violates Commerce Clause. This has already been ruled on, by the way, in at least 2 U.S. district courts. One in Texas that oversaw a project that was canceled in Texas due to the passing of a ROFR law. It was repealed. The project was kiboshed. The district court said, you can't do this. It violates dormant Commerce Clause. So I think they're going to get a response. And I think they're going to say the exact same thing that the DOJ said to Iowa, which is don't bother. It's illegal. And if you do anything, then the courts are going to take it up, and they're going to determine or decide, as these other U.S. courts decided, that it's illegal. It's unconstitutional.
And we do know, there was a news story this week about how Trump is taking, monopolies and anti-competitive practices very seriously, and he's going after companies that are engaging in these types of tactics. Yeah,
very much so. So prior to this Wisconsin letter, and even prior to the Iowa letter, the DOJ Antitrust Division issued a press release, a memo about antitrust practices. And so here's one thing they say. They say, quote, laws and regulations can undermine reliability and affordability by protecting incumbent electricity providers from competition or disruptive innovation. That is specifically alluding to ROFR provisions in a number of states. So this is already on the Trump administration's radar. They're very much aware of what's happening in the MISO region right now with, all the stuff that's happening with ROFR, and they're not for it.
Oh, that's great. And so while our lawmakers are spending all of this time and energy in getting this bill across the finish line that is going to eventually get thrown out because through court challenges.
Yeah.
All that time and energy should be spent on the state budgets, and we are in the middle of this process right now. Joint Finance started their work on the budget last week, and on April 1st, that was Election Day, they had agency briefs. And I wrote about this in Missed Opportunity, JFC bunts on agency briefs. Ordinarily, in the budget process, you will have up to 5 days of agency briefs. And the point of the agency briefs is this gives lawmakers the opportunity to pull the heads of all these major state agencies into the hearing room and essentially interrogate them about why do you want so much money this next budget? What have you done with the money we've given you so far? Why are you failing to meet all of these expectations that we have put on you, that you've put on yourself? So this is a great opportunity to just really, figure out what's going on throughout the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And in years past, they would do this for up to 5 days. They would drag a dozen agencies up to really rake these guys over the coals. This year they did 1 day, and they only took two agencies, and they weren't even the two biggest agencies. It was just UW System and Department of Corrections. So not the Department of Public Instruction, not the Department of Health Services, none of all these terrible things that the Evers administration is doing, not even DOA, which is usually the no-brainer. You pull the DOA because that's the top agency.
Yeah.
And didn't do it. Why didn't they do it? Well, here is co-chair Mark Bourne explaining to Wisconsin Eye why they didn't pull the Governor Evers secretaries in the hearing.
The biggest reason for it is this administration and these agencies just have not been straight with us on things. They just don't want to really talk about what they're doing and why they're doing it, and so it kind of makes it like it's a waste of their time and our time.
All right, so this does not give me confidence that Republicans are up for this fight. The budget is always just a very contentious issue. It's very complicated this year because Governor Evers has gotten very creative with his line item veto pen, to where you've got all kinds of poison pills and landmines hidden in this document that you have to really be sharp to identify. How he's going to be able to manipulate that document to unbalance the budget. This surrender upfront attitude is not what we need to be seeing right now from the Republican-led legislature. We need a responsible budget. We need, a budget that is, oriented on what's best for taxpayers. And if, this is going to be their attitude up front, Governor Evers is just going to, he's already, likely to run circles around them.
Yeah.
But this is a strong indication that this is going to be a really bad budget.
Yep.
Now, also, last week, they started their public hearings right away, too. There was one in Kaukauna on Wednesday, and then there was another one in West Allis on Friday, and you were at that one. So what stood out to you about that experience?
Oh, that the teachers union is very well organized. It was almost like every other person who went up to the microphone was a teacher. And there's another thing too, not only a teacher, but not more often than not, but a huge proportion of them were special ed teachers. Or people in the
because they want like the reimbursement rate to be like 66% of costs.
Yeah. And so the main complaint was that school choice, private schools or charter schools, or they have a disproportionate amount of funding for special needs. They get reimbursed for like everything, and we only get reimbursed for this amount, and blah blah blah. That was the main thing. It was teachers asking for money. And the other weird thing, the arts and entertainment industry, like there was a film group. There was like they were out in force, asking for more grant money and asking for the film people were asking for like a film administrator or something like that. They wanted a film office.
They want Wisconsin to be the next California and Hollywood and all that. So.
Yeah. So, but the main, it was like all teachers, begging for more funding for special ed.
So we're gonna have a piece, an analysis on the film credit idea within the next week or two. The special needs requests out there. So I'm not sure what the reimbursement rate is now for special needs costs, but yeah, they want to like push that. They want to like double it.
Yeah, they were saying it was in the 20s or something.
Okay.
Like that.
So, but this is a great example of why your schools are always broke and why your local governments are always crying for more money and why the state gets itself into trouble sometimes. There's, when I went to school, there were no special needs kids. There was, like 6 kids in my school that had Down syndrome, and they were in the, special needs class.
Yeah. Today,
it's, a quarter of your school is special needs.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because the school gets extra funding for every kid that's special needs.
Mm-hmm.
That's supplemental funding that's outside of the revenue the revenue formula. So that's all just, bonus money for these schools.
Yeah.
And so they see that money and they grab that money. Now, taking that money means that you're going to be spending more money. You're always going to have to, if you're a special needs kid, yeah, you'll get 20 cents for every special needs kid, but then you got to spend $1 on that kid.
Yeah.
So there is no incentive in, classifying all these kids as special needs. Many of them are not special needs, but, except on paper, because that means more state funding, but then you have to, the cost of educating these kids becomes a lot more too. But this is a standard problem with government. Never leave money on the table. Sure, I'll take that $1. I don't care if taking that $1 means I'm going to have to spend $3. I just increased my revenue.
Yeah.
So I don't know why this is like such a problem, why our public officials cannot understand that, you don't take in more revenue if it's going to exponentially increase your expenses. They just cannot figure this out. And I don't understand it, but it is a common theme.
Yeah, and these special needs departments too. So most of these kids, they're not Down syndrome. They're not like nonverbal autism. Like that's not, the cohort of special needs kids. It's kids who got an ADD or ADHD diagnosis, which is really easy to do. Go to a doctor and he'll diagnose your kid, because the way they diagnose it is by asking you questions. It's a questionnaire. That's it. You answer like 4 yes to 4 out of 7 questions, then congratulations.
Do you ever have a hard time focusing on one thing at a time?
Yes. Do you ever forget to complete school assignments? Yes. Do you ever find it, difficult to pay attention in class? Yes. Who can't answer? These are literally the questions that they ask you. So check off 4 of those 7 boxes, and I guess you're ADD. So, and then here's what happens. Okay, so special needs departments, they get all this extra funding, right? Do you think those kids are being taken out of those regular classes and being put into their own separate classes? Hell no, they're not. No, they stay in those classes with kids who are not diagnosed with any of these things, kids who don't have 504 plans. Okay, and then maybe once a week or every other week they'll be pulled out right during tutorial, right, break or something,
for an hour of speech,
for an hour of direct instruction. These kids aren't getting direct care. They're not getting your the undivided attention of the faculty in your special needs department. The administrators in the special needs department sit in their offices all day. Okay.
Apparently making a lot of money.
Yeah, because there's no strings attached. Not really, as far as I know. No strings attached to the special needs funding. If you say, oh, well, our administrative costs to deliver special education to special needs kids is, 80%, then so be it. But do not have, any delusions that, they're actually putting in the effort to educate these kids who they say are,
So this reminds me,
disabled.
In terms of diagnosing, kids with special needs, there's, you'll see this on social media a lot. It's kind of like a joke of when somebody is really interested in one topic, like they've got a hobby
Yes.
or something. The joke online is, I got model trains. What kind of autism did you get? Because it's the idea that if, and look, every kid is like this. Every kid goes through phases like, oh, I'm really interested in trains this week. Oh, I'm really into dinosaurs. So if you get fixated on one topic for too long, the popular conception is, well, you've got autism because, that's a symptom of autism is to be obsessed with one thing.
Oh, it's not normal to be obsessed with this. Dude, there are kids that are obsessed with Fortnite. I mean, why don't they have, as the kids are calling it, the tism.
Yeah, maybe they are being diagnosed with special. Maybe there is a Fortnite.
Or baseball or soccer or something, right? I mean...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, kids get in all kinds of, things.
It's purely arbitrary that we say, oh, you're super interested in this one thing. Well, that's not normal. Therefore, you must be mentally defective.
So we're going to skip ahead real quick here because we'll come back to the budget in a minute. But, while we're on topic of public instruction, Jill Underly, she won the Supreme Court, or not the Supreme Court. She won the state superintendent race. Good for her. Now, she's coming out, guns a-blazing, telling the Trump administration, pound sand, we are not going to implement any of your DEI requirements here in Wisconsin. That's a big deal because the Trump administration said that, well, if you do that, then I'm not going to give you any more federal funding. And DPI gets 10% of their funding from the federal government. Now, this is not DPI funding. This is flow-through funding. So that $1.8 billion for the biennium, that goes to school districts. Now, as I was just mentioning before, and that's why I kind of want to show this up front, is so with special education aids, that is outside of the revenue formula. So when your school district is crying about what their revenue limit is per pupil, there's all kinds of funding sources that are not covered within that revenue limit. They want you to believe that when they say, our revenue limit is $12,000 per pupil, and you need to pass a referendum because all the schools around us have $13,000 per pupil. So what they aren't counting is all this extra aid. So like special education aid, that goes on top of that $12,000 per pupil. All of their federal aid is also outside of that program. Now, this is important because, this will hurt public schools. They're going to have to completely change their narratives, though, in order to explain it to the public. So that's one thing. But number two, because it is not included in the revenue formula, that means that if all that federal aid went away, if that $1.8 billion vanished overnight, it would have no impact on your property taxes. Because your school property tax bill is a combination of how much state aid you get in general state aid for the school and your property tax. And so whatever that limit is, wherever the state aid, however much the state aid takes care of, property taxes fill the rest. And then that's that revenue limit. And special education, federal funding, all that stuff is gravy on top. So these schools are going to be in a lot of trouble if they don't comply, and it's going to be completely on them. And it's, like I said, it's going to be fascinating to see what the school district's messaging will be to the public on why suddenly they need more money when their revenue limit didn't change and they're getting just as much state aid and property tax and all that. But they're going to have to do a real PR campaign on this one.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's go back. Let's pick back up on the budget now.
Oh, yeah.
UW system analysis. Mike, you took care of this one. So
yeah, let me try to refresh myself really quick. Okay, so it's a huge increase in the budget. A lot of that's coming from GPR, and also a big portion of that is coming from program revenue. Yeah. So program revenue, that's just tuition and fees that you're charging to students. I actually...
So let me just hop in here real quick. So all funds, this is all the funding that the university gets. They want a lot more, obviously. They always do. So the university system wants a total of $17 billion for the biennium. Governor Evers, 16.5 will be fine. But UW is a little different because most of its funding does not come from state sources. As Mike was saying, most of the revenue comes from most of the revenue is program revenue, and that's things like tuition and fees, student fees, and things like that. So that makes up most of their revenue. If you'll, and they're also in that showdown over the Fed. So they've got $3.3 billion on the line. That's a quarter of their revenue. But at GPR, that is what your state taxpayer funds are. That's what comes from the general fund, so your income taxes contribute to this. That's 18% of their revenue. They want a lot more. They want $1 billion more from state taxpayers, and Governor Evers, his request would lower that a little bit. But the idea here is the university says, well, all these other schools around the country get this much from state taxpayers, so we want to get this much from state taxpayers, even though that is just a small portion of the pot.
Yeah.
They're just looking at this in isolation and saying, this is what we want because everyone else has got that, and we want to be better than everyone else. So that's what this comes down to. They want another $1 billion, and not a lot of good explanation on why they need it.
No, but we do have some explanation, which is in the budget request. So in the governor's budget request for UW, most of that money that he's asking for is going towards salaries and benefits. It was, I want to say more than 50%, something, 53, so 47% salaries and wages. Right now, the UW employs 6 times more administrators than they do faculty. And when you actually look at how he plans to spend this money, most of that money isn't going to go towards hiring more faculty or more administrators, right? It's going to be a mix of both in the same proportion, but it's to increase their wages, net inflation, which over the past 2 years, and we only have 2 years worth of data, the Legislative Audit Bureau has 2 audits for the UW system where you can go in and you can look at the salaries and the fringe benefits paid to employees at the UW, and their wages have increased faster than inflation. Between May 2022 and May 2024, academic staff, so administrators, their salaries increased by 9.2%. Holy heck! Are you?
How can you live on that?
Yeah, and for faculty,
and they're all and they all make 6 figures too. That's important to point out too.
And the faculties increased by 8.3%. That's just salaries. That's not including fringe benefits. But I mean, these administrators are very well compensated. Very, very well compensated. The highest paid faculty member in the UW system gets $644,000 a year. The highest paid administrator gets $202,000 per year. The median for an administrator is $71,000. Median for faculty is $96,500. Total compensation is over 6 digits when you include benefits with that.
Yeah, so this is something I've been talking about lately because this kind of ties into Act 10. Act 10, collective bargaining reform, pretty much got rid of the unions. Public sector workers are still convinced that they're getting screwed from this, but I will tell you, I have watched public employee salaries over the years, and 10 years ago, when people first started making a fuss over the country about how much college professors were making, we didn't really have a story on that at the UW. Yeah. I would go through something like your top professors are making $150,000 a year.
Right.
After Act 10 went away, it was public employee salaries have exploded. It is so common for state workers to be making 6 figures a year. You look at county jobs, a lot of county jobs start at $80,000 a year. Mm-hmm. The number of UW employees that are making, $200,000, $300,000 a year. I mean, that was unheard of 15 years ago. The idea that public employees are making more than the governor was always a bit of a scandal. That is out the window.
Yeah.
So they are making a ton of money right now. It's because of Act 10 that, in part, that they're able to do this, but it also just shows you how out of control this has gotten.
Yeah. And just to give you an example, so in the governor's, budget request for UW, breaks it down to 10 different things that he wants this money to be spent on, and one of those categories is for innovative technologies. He wants to give additional money for AI research and development and blah, 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 like an AI, department or something. Let's see here.
Real quick on that. I mean, I hate that too. I hate
this keeping up with the Joneses thing that everyone else is doing AI stuff, we got to do it too.
Well, this is also crony capitalism. We've talked about this at MacIver years and years ago, but these ideas of them investing and developing technology, the government doesn't go and make a profit on that. The university doesn't make a profit on that. It's not like somebody invents something awesome. The university doesn't go and say, hey, we've just made $1 billion, let's lower tuition.
Yeah.
That gets handed off to, whatever person, is on campus and the business incubator. They're the ones that go and sell that $1 billion idea.
Yeah.
And none of that money comes back to the university. None of that, other than whatever rent it was for the workshop. So, we invest all this money into this research and development, but none of it becomes a public benefit afterwards.
Yeah. But for this AI thing that he wants to do, he wants to give him $104 million, right, for innovative technologies. $98 million is categorized as an unallotted reserve.
Ah, nice.
Which means that the UW can do whatever the hell they want.
Slush fund.
With that money. That's 95% of that. Only 5%, according to his budget, is being set aside for salaries, fringe, and AI faculty. So overall, in the UW, where's the percentage? I have it here. 53%. That's right. 53% of all the money that he's going to give to UW system is in that unallotted reserve. That's a 53% slush fund for UW.
Okay, so we got a lot of complaints about the UW, and we, in order to really, explain MacIver's position on the UW, we've got to talk about the Wisconsin idea. This is like religion in Wisconsin. It is the idea that government and the university should be working hand in hand to improve the lives of Wisconsin residents. A state worker came up with the idea 120 years ago, and it caught on. It's part of the Constitution now, where the university has to be right by the Capitol. The original idea was that the university would be producing really smart people at public policy, and those people would go work for the government. Mm-hmm. And this has morphed into just, it's like I said, it's like a religion. It is a sacred concept. No, everyone's got a different idea of what exactly it means, but in our analysis, we point out some of the things that the university has, identifies very specific initiatives as part of the Wisconsin idea. So you get all the DEI, transgender, just you name it, all that liberal social philosophy is the Wisconsin idea. So we have a disagreement on, obviously, what conservatives think is in the best interest of Wisconsin. I said what liberals think is in the best interest of Wisconsin. So when it comes right down to it, we do not agree on what the Wisconsin idea, what the benefits of the Wisconsin idea are. So you have to get beyond that, because what we're seeing here is that the university does not like the state government telling it how to do its business. It hates, all these audits, all this, nitpicking, telling them this is how high tuition can be. These are programs you have to emphasize. They don't like bringing, hat in hand, hey, we need more taxpayer funds. They don't like that. And lawmakers don't like all the garbage that's coming out of the university either.
Yeah.
It's, all these kids with these worthless degrees that are then a burden on society because you can't, get a productive job with your gender degree.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of gripes both ways. And there's only two ways to really solve this. One is for the legislature to take greater control over the university, but that will mean taxpayers have to support it more. We can't just be giving 20% and saying, we're going to tell you everything that you can do right now. Because that's part of the gripe is it is just 20% of their total budget, and, we want to tell them how to run their business. Okay, I get it. You don't like that. But then on the other hand, we don't like giving you 20% of your budget and you guys just, doing whatever you want.
Yeah.
So either the state needs to take full control of the university, or the university has to be privatized. It's one or the other. This combination of the two is not working.
Yeah. It can't go on like this.
Yeah. So you got two huge barriers in this. One is the Wisconsin idea.
Yeah.
So people have to get over the Wisconsin idea. It's vague. It is not working. It is not delivering the promise that was made when the Wisconsin idea was introduced. But then the second one is you need a constitutional amendment in order to allow the state to sever its relationship with the university.
Yeah.
Now this will mean let's just brainstorm here a little bit. What it would mean if the university privatized. So one of the gripes right now is, you hear this from parents all the time. My kid has a 4.0 and he couldn't get into UW-Madison. And all these foreign kids are coming in with their 3.8s. What gives? Yeah. So if you're the university, the reason why you want the foreign kids is because they have to pay
out-of-state tuition.
Yeah. So first of all, they're going to be able to charge whatever they want on tuition. They could have 100% of their students could be from out of state if you privatized. It'd be completely on them. So that would probably be one of those things that people might not like one way or the other, but it would settle the debate.
Yeah.
Set tuition as high as you want. Just, I don't know. What are some of the other? That's the first impact that jumps out.
Right now, no one's happy. So the lefties who run the university are upset because they can't do everything they want, and then people on the right are upset because, as you said, the UW system are such commies. They won't accept my kid. They won't. Why do you want them to go there?
Yeah.
They're commies. It doesn't make any sense.
It's not even that good of a school.
No.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking up how good their PhD econ program is, and I was like, who comes up with these rankings? People are saying that it's like ranked 40th, in terms of worldwide PhD programs. Okay, yeah. But it doesn't mean anything, right? Everyone just has this idea that it's good, but it's not. The purpose. People need to understand this, okay? People believe that Americans value education. They don't value education. Okay, they value the appearance of being educated. Okay.
Yeah.
If you value education, then you don't send your kids to frickin' UW. You send your kids to Grove City or Hillsdale, or or Aquinas or whatever it is. If you want them to actually be educated, because that's the purpose of education, is to be educated. It's not to get a job.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not to say, oh, I went to Harvard. Okay. So you're showering this. Praise on an institution that doesn't deserve it. Why would you want that? Why as a conservative would you want to support this institution? This is one thing that you could do. I'm not saying it's the best thing that you could do. Okay, you're going to privatize it. Here's what you do. Every taxpayer in the state who's a resident of the state is issued stock, for each college.
Oh, that's a good way to. That's an
right?
interesting
and
strategy.
You could say, oh, well, what you pay in taxes, you should have it. Okay, sure, but make it, incorporate it, turn it into a publicly traded company, right, where every taxpayer has equal ownership in each college, and then the value of each college throughout the state will be assessed by this new market that you would have, and then people who like it, you can retain your ownership, control, hold on to your stock for that college. If you don't like it, you can sell it.
Or go to the board, or go to the board meeting and demand the regent get fired.
Yeah, and what that does, in effect, is you because we have been funding it, right? Mm-hmm. You do own it. It's yours. Yeah. It's financed with your money. You're the owner of it. Okay, and that retains that ownership instead of just saying, hey, we're going to put it up for auction, right? Yep. And the state's going to take the cash. Hell no.
I love that.
Residents are going to take the cash.
I love that.
If I sell my stock.
Yeah, no, that's great too, because, I was just complaining about with the crony capitalism. That's going to end. If you're a shareholder, and it's, wait a minute, why are you giving away billions of dollars of R&D for free?
Yeah.
That would stop dead in its tracks.
Yeah. And also, UW, I don't know what their endowment is. I'm sure it's in the billions. Yeah. But they could live off their endowment for the next 50 years. They don't need the federal money.
No, here's the,
Same thing with all the Ivies, too. Yeah. Harvard, it's like $60 billion.
Well, and like with the, and they're private, too.
And they're private, but they're co-opted because they take federal money, not Hillsdale, by the way.
So part of the reason why people are obsessed with UW-Madison is, that's the Badger football team.
Yeah, or in the flagship.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, and I'm friends with engineers. And there's a lot of manufacturers around, southern Wisconsin, this area. They don't recruit engineers from UW-Madison. You talk to these companies, Stout, Platteville, Michigan Tech. They don't want engineers from UW-Madison, but but yet you want to go to UW-Madison because, well, the Badgers football.
Yep. Yeah.
Then also about another benefit of the privatization, it's. The state wouldn't be telling you need to get rid of your gender studies department. Your accountants would be telling you need to get rid of your gender studies program.
Yes. Yeah.
Because suddenly all this state money that's subsidizing these programs, it's gone. You know, suddenly it's, program revenue is what's keeping these departments afloat. And there ain't that much program revenue to keep, diverse gender studies going.
Yeah. And if it turns out that there is a market demand for, lesbian dance theory, then
At
then
50
so
grand
be it.
a year, yeah.
People can pay for it. And then, if you got the money, then do that. But let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see how viable that department is.
So you can read all about our policy position analysis on the UW budget analysis piece. Moving on, this is another one that I've been really hammering about for a long time. And Rebecca Drager, our intern, helped update this research. So at the county level, I don't think people realize this. When county officials, elected county officials quit, there is not a special election. The governor gets to pick the replacement. So this is a big problem because most counties in Wisconsin are Republican, and voters elect Republicans for these positions. When those Republican elected officials quit before their term is over, Gevers gets to pick the replacement. So, hey, congratulations, Jeff Wallace of Rusk County and Scott Haynes of Clark County, the sheriffs who decided they were real happy winning the election, but they didn't want to finish out their term. So now you got Democrats as your chief law enforcement officers. So, MacIver, we're going to continue calling out these guys. If you're a Republican county official out there, especially if you're a sheriff or a district attorney, we're going to make sure everybody knows how you stabbed your voters in the back by quitting on them with Governor Evers picking your replacement. So, again, Jeff Wallace, Rusk County, and Scott Haynes of Clark County, hope you enjoy your retirement. So here is some of the numbers behind this phenomenon. Sheriffs are elected the same years as the governor. So 2018, 55 counties elected Republican sheriffs, and 53 of them finished out their terms in 2022. So that means that, you got two Democrats. People voted for two of those sheriffs were Republicans, and people got two Democrats by the time it was all over. Hey, we had a good comeback in 2022. We elected 57 Republican sheriffs, but we are not done with the term yet, obviously. We're really just 2 years into it. So we're down to 49. Eight Republican sheriffs have quit on the job, and Evers has gone to pick the replacements. So, like I said, this is becoming a big problem. It's even worse with district attorneys. So sheriffs get to decide what what you're going to get arrested for in a county, and district attorneys decide what you're going to be charged with in a county. So when it comes to enforcing the law, conservatives and liberals have very different opinions on what's important. So here's how it is with district attorneys. In 2020, same year as the presidential election, Wisconsinites elected 41 out of 71 district attorneys. They wanted 41 were Republicans, so a majority. By the end of that term, there were only 29 left. 12 Republican district attorneys quit before they finished out their term, and this gave Governor Evers the opportunity to replace them with Democrats, with liberals. So, this is really bad. This is really, people are always complaining about the Soros-funded district attorneys who don't charge crime. This is a big communist tactic where you want property and violent crimes to increase to kind of terrorize your citizens. This happens in every communist revolution and country. Well, that's why you don't want liberals as your district attorney, because they're going to charge, parents that are, homeschooling their kids, or, people that are having backyard parties during a pandemic. But they're going to let, the guys that are, stealing cars and robbing stores, go out on free and on bail. So this is why this is a problem. So now we've only got 36 district attorneys that just got reelected. So, we're down to half. We used to have a strong majority in the counties of the state, but, we'll see how low it gets over the next 4 years. So always want to call attention to this because this is a real serious issue, and this is something that the grassroots can have a direct impact on.
Yeah, and it is much, much more significant for any of you. Local politics is so much more important, but people don't understand that, I think, a lot of the time, that your local unit of government is far more important than, state or national. But the same thing goes for federal appointments. Imagine if Tom Tiffany decided to retire. Evers gets to replace him. Wouldn't that be important? Right? because he gets to put another Democrat in the U.S. House.
Well,
That would be super important.
Well, I think about the whole situation with Mitch McConnell.
Oh, yeah.
Mitch McConnell, who's like, 1 foot in the grave right now and still has 2 years to finish out his term. Kentucky's got a Democrat governor. If Mitch McConnell were to, everyone says he's got to resign. You don't want to resign. You need him to get replaced by another Republican.
Yeah. Just play hooky. Don't show up to work.
Yeah, that's right. Keep that Republican majority alive.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of local issues, chickens of Waterloo. So this was the topic of the MacIver News Minute this week, so I'm just going to play the MacIver News Minute to kind of introduce the topic.
This is the MacIver News Minute.
Nothing in life is simple or easy when the government gets involved. Take the city of Waterloo, Wisconsin, for example. Not really a liberal place. Trump won there. But when some residents wanted to get backyard chickens, the city government lost its mind. Following months of committee meetings, draft proposals, hearings, and debates, it finally hatched a plan. The city will issue up to 6 licenses at $50 each. There are 21 requirements. 7 different breeds are not allowed. And the best part? This is only a 2-year pilot program to figure out whether residents should be allowed to keep chickens or not. The city can pull the plug on the whole thing at any time. Now, you might get all ruffled up about what's going on in Washington or even in the state capitol, but this is a great example of what happens when you overlook what's going on in your own backyard. For the MacIver News Minute, I'm Bill Osmulski.
For more free market news, log on to MacIverInstitute.com.
Talking about just local issues, and people having an influence on their communities. Like I said in the MacIver News Minute, it was like 50-50. It's like 50-50 conservative and liberals. But for some reason, it doesn't matter what unit of government you're talking about, whether it's federal, state, or local, it's like everybody just loses their mind and goes crazy on power. And this whole chicken thing is just ridiculous. It's you start getting all these local, whenever somebody, you get a couple hippies in town that want to have backyard chickens. And then all of a sudden it becomes a debate, some alderman's like, oh, I don't think people should be allowed to have chickens. Or, what about kids? These chickens could attack kids. It's like micromanaging, people's private property rights. Yeah. And I know this is a big issue to you, Mike. I'm going to throw up the chicken ordinance from Waterloo. There's 21 requirements. Yeah. So just, Mike, your take, because you wrote a great editorial on this too.
This chicken stuff is just a reminder of the fact that you do not live in a constitutional republic. You have no rights. You are not a citizen. You are a feudal tenant living at the privilege of your betters, your king, and that is the local city council. Okay? They are the elders. They know what is best. One of the major disputes in this Waterloo's decision to allow chickens, right? Okay, 6-1 it passed. They said, yes, you can have chickens in your backyard. You know what the one dissenter said? The one dissenter who voted no said, I would have voted for it, but they said the coops had to be 10 feet from the property line, and I wanted it to be 15, as if 5 feet would make a frickin' difference. This is so ridiculous, okay? You are a serf. You do not own your property. You are a tenant. Property rights do not exist, okay? These are small-time tyrants who are aspiring to great tyrannical things, and they're getting there one step at a time by stripping you of your rights and telling you what you can and cannot do. Not only do they say, hey, okay, yeah, you can have chickens in your backyard at your own expense, okay? But you also got to pay us $50. Also, this city, we have a population of 3,650 people. We think it's eminently reasonable that only 6 of you shall be allowed to have chickens. And just so that we're clear, right? You can't have as many chickens as you want. You get 4 chickens, and you only get them for 2 years. And we will review this process every single year.
They can end it at any time.
And end it at any time, but we'll review it at the end of every year if we get that far, right? Yeah. And assess, whether this is really a good policy. Here's the policy. My property, I get to do whatever the hell I want with it. I have chickens, they stay on my property. They come on your property, sure, that's a different story. But this is just over. They have nothing better to do. Nothing better to do.
So I hope this is supposed to be a wake-up call. Like we're really emphasizing this story to try to. The grassroots needs to step up. Like this should be like people should be really pissed off in Waterloo.
Everyone should go buy a chicken.
Well, yeah,
what they should do.
That'd be great. Yeah, go with the chicken revolts in Waterloo. But on top of that, this happens in towns all over. Waterloo is not unusual. Is not unique. It's just that they're the most recent ones to do this.
This is par for the course.
Yeah. So, hey, a year from now, you're going to be voting on members of the city council. You got to throw all those bums out. Every single one. There needs to be, as many seats that are up there needs to be solid conservative candidates, and you got to do it now. This is not a wait, until December to maybe I'll run for city council. The papers are due in January.
Yeah.
This is, you need to start building momentum right now. You need to start coming to city council meetings right now. You need to come to city council with a chicken.
Yeah. And a lot of people would say, well, it's just chickens. Like, what's the big deal? No. Flip it around. It's just chickens. And you can't even have that. It's just chickens.
This is everything.
Yeah. If they're willing to do it for something like
this,
this, the really important stuff, you're screwed.
Yeah. So this is just an easy example for people to wrap their heads around. This is not, like you said, it's just chickens. No, it's even chickens. Mm-hmm. So yeah, really, there's a reason why we highlight this stuff, and with. I remember when this debate was playing out in where I live in Edgerton, there was one city council, their complaint about it was not only, were they afraid that chickens were going to attack kids, well, then why do you allow dogs in town?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Dogs are
You're okay with pit bulls, but not with egg hens.
Yeah.
But then the other thing was, well, what if I want, fresh milk every morning? What if I wanted a cow in my backyard? What if you wanted a cow in your own backyard? Do it. How is that a problem? Yeah. So anyway, we're going to keep on highlighting these issues. We're going to keep on, really hammering these local examples on, why the grassroots needs to get involved, because, a lot, the local issues is where it's at. This is where people need to start focusing more of their attention, because, we got a big problem in Madison. And, I'm not the only one who thinks that what happened in the election last week was the Wisconsin RPW's Waterloo moment, speaking of Waterloo.
Yeah.
So, they're in bad shape right now. What we're seeing from the legislature right now is they are not interested in leadership. They are this whole WERA bill is, this is crony capitalism. This is... And the fact that they're so focused on that and they don't really care about what's going on with the state budget is telling you that they're done. They're not just waving the white flag on the budget. It's, what can I get out of this job while I'm still in power, because we are not probably going to be in power next year.
Yeah.
They recognize that, and I don't know, us as, just citizens are going to, what change we can affect, but this is why it's important to start rallying at the local level especially.
Yeah.
Because salvation is not going to come from Madison, Wisconsin. It's going to come from you showing up to your own school board meetings, your own city council meetings, and demanding change at that level, because that's going to be about the only place you can affect change in this state. If things don't, unless RPW completely turns around the ship and declares they have not yet begun to fight, things might get pretty bleak here in Wisconsin.
Yep. Oh, boy. Well...
Any closing words, Mike?
Just because I just saw it with the chickens. Very last bullet point. Officers are permitted to euthanize any chicken found running at large. If there's chickens at large, we have to rein them in like it's a pit bull, right? Yeah. Like it's terrorizing the neighborhood. Just think of how miserable these people are. We will kill in order to, make sure that you stay within the lines.
The thing about the old ladies that call the cops on stray cats hunting mice in the neighborhood. All right, so for anyone that can't read this, because I know the type is small, we've got it on our website on the MacIver News Minute story about this, and be sure to check out Mike's piece on his tongue-in-cheek piece about the nobility allowing you to keep chickens.
Yes.
So anyway, like I said, ton going on here all the time. we are going to be taking off next week because it's Good Friday. So thank you for joining us for this edition of the MacIver News Minute, or the MacIver Report. Have a good Easter, and we're going to end on this old trailer I made up. I produced a few years ago. This is MacIver's Bible epic for Wisconsin. In the year 2020 of our Lord, in the land of Wisconsin, during the second year of the reign of Governor Evers, Evers decreed all churches closed in the name of science and public health, and the people complied, and turned in those who did not to the authorities. As Easter approached, the faithful prayed, but Evers' heart was hardened. He would allow crowds at markets and clinics, but he would not allow the people to gather for God. And the faithful continued to pray that Evers' heart would be moved.